It was a busy Monday morning at the downtown bank. Customers filled every chair, tellers rushed between windows, and security guards watched the growing line. 24-year-old Emma. Parker had only stopped by to deposit her first paycheck from her new teaching job. She was kind-hearted but naturally cautious, especially in a crowded place filled with strangers. As she waited for her number to be called, she noticed an elderly man standing alone near the customer service desk. His gray suit was old but neatly pressed. His hands trembled slightly as he held a worn leather folder, and his eyes constantly searched the room as though he was waiting for someone who would never arrive. After several minutes, the old man slowly approached Emma. His voice was quiet and respectful. "Young lady," he asked, "would you do something unusual for me?" Emma looked confused but nodded politely. The man took a deep breath before saying, "Can you pretend to be my granddaughter for just 5 minutes?" Emma froze. Every warning she'd ever heard about strangers rushed through her mind. Sensing her hesitation, the old man quickly explained, "Today is my 85th birthday. My real granddaughter promised she'd meet me here to help me finalize an important document, but she called this morning to say she wasn't coming. The bank manager refuses to continue because he believes I have no family present. I don't need your money or your signature. I only need someone to stand beside me so I won't feel completely alone." Emma studied his tired face. There was sadness, not deception, in his eyes. After a moment's thought, she smiled gently and said, "I'll help, but only for 5 minutes." The old man's face brightened with gratitude. Together they walked toward the manager's office. Before they reached the door, a sharply dressed young businessman entered the bank. He stopped the moment he saw the elderly man laughing softly beside Emma. His expression changed instantly from curiosity to shock. Without taking his eyes off them, he whispered, "Grandfather, who is she?" The young businessman hurried across the bank lobby, his expensive navy blue suit drawing everyone's attention. His name was Ethan Harrison, CEO of Harrison Financial Group and grandson of the elderly man, Arthur Harrison. For weeks, Ethan had been buried in business meetings and international travel. He hadn't realized that today was his grandfather's birthday until his assistant reminded him only an hour earlier. When he arrived at the bank expecting to find Arthur alone, he was stunned to see a young woman standing beside him, smiling as though they had known each other for years. Arthur looked at Ethan and smiled gently. "Relax, son," he said. "She isn't really your cousin. I simply asked her to pretend to be my granddaughter for a few minutes because I didn't want to feel alone." Embarrassment immediately crossed Ethan's face. He turned toward Emma and sincerely thanked her. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly. Emma smiled. No one should spend their birthday feeling forgotten. Her simple words struck Ethan harder than any business deal ever had. He suddenly realized that while he had built a billion-dollar company, he had neglected the man who had sacrificed everything to raise him after his parents died. Inside the manager's office, the paperwork was completed without difficulty. Arthur wasn't withdrawing money for himself. Instead, he was donating a large portion of his fortune to establish scholarships for students who had lost their parents. When the documents were signed, Arthur surprised everyone once again. Looking at Emma, he said, "Today you gave me something my money could never buy, 5 minutes of genuine kindness." Then he turned toward Ethan. "This young lady reminded me what family is supposed to feel like," ashamed of his neglect. Ethan apologized to his grandfather with tears in his eyes. Before leaving the bank, he invited Emma and Arthur to lunch, promising that from that day forward, business would never come before family again. Lunch that afternoon lasted far longer than anyone expected. Arthur laughed more than he had in years as he shared stories about his late wife, the small grocery store where he had started his business, and the sacrifices he had made to give Ethan a better future. Emma listened with genuine interest, occasionally smiling as Arthur teased her by calling her my honorary granddaughter. Ethan watched quietly, realizing that a complete stranger had given his grandfather more attention in one morning than he had managed in months. As they left the restaurant, Arthur looked at Emma and said, "You agreed to pretend for only 5 minutes, but you've given an old man a memory he'll cherish forever." Over the following weeks, Ethan kept the promise he had made at the bank. He began visiting Arthur every Sunday, canceling unnecessary meetings and making family his first priority. Inspired by Emma's compassion, Harrison Financial Group launched a new community program called 5 Minutes of Kindness, encouraging employees to spend time helping elderly people who lived alone. The scholarship fund Arthur created was officially named after his late wife, providing education for hundreds of students who had lost their parents. When the program was announced, Ethan invited Emma to the ceremony as the guest of honor. Standing before reporters and community leaders, he admitted, "A stranger taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, that success means nothing if the people you love feel forgotten." Months later, Arthur celebrated another birthday, but this time the dining room was full of laughter. Ethan arrived early with a birthday cake. Former scholarship recipients came to thank Arthur personally, and Emma walked in carrying a small photo album filled with pictures from the day they first met at the bank. Arthur smiled through tears as he looked around the room. "That morning," he said softly, "I thought I was asking for 5 minutes. Instead, God gave me a new family." Everyone embraced as the room filled with applause and laughter. Emma realized that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness require nothing more than a few minutes of compassion. Those 5 minutes had reunited a family, changed a billionaire's priorities, and given one lonely old man the happiest chapter of his life. Story lesson: kindness given to a stranger can become a lifelong blessing. Family is defined by love, not just by blood. Sometimes 5 minutes of compassion can change a lifetime.